I'm like, I'm screwed. If I don't figure this out, like I can get sued, right? I can get in trouble for this. And so I tell my mentor, like, hey, she's a very famous like Taiwanese businesswoman now. She's a founder actually. I was like, hey, I need to like work on this. And I told my other teammates who were programmers, you guys spend time with the advisor. I'm gonna try to figure out how to get a hold of Amazon. I spent 3 months, so 2 months, 3 months throughout the whole program talking to Amazon, like getting a hold of Jeff Bezos' office. And then eventually I get a hold of somebody and they reply and they're like, hey, we see what you're doing. Your teammate whose account got flagged, we're not going to unban his account because he violated our terms. But everybody else, I see how you're logging into accounts. There's a better way to do it. And he's like, by the way, it's pretty smart what you're doing. Like, he's like, you're hoarding, like you're basically injecting all these sellers to block sales so nobody gets sales. I was like, he knows. And he goes,
Yeah.
Phil, if you just go in through this form here, you could just actually sign up for user permissions and they can give you access so you don't have to log in into the account. So this wouldn't happen. I was like, oh. Ooh. And then I would say out of the 80%, most of them got their accounts unbanned.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, but people were pissed. Their money was tied up for months.
Yeah.
And I was like stressed out. And my mentor, who had worked at Google, like Facebook, McDonald's, he like worked all these corporate jobs. It's never seen somebody just go head on against a big company and come out, you know, without like, you know, because they have so much legal stuff that they can block me out. Like, holy crap, Sean
did it.
Yeah. And so afterwards, she was so inspired by it that she actually quit and became a founder. And she wrote about it in her book. So in her book, there's a mention. It's either about Nvidia or it has my name in it directly. But she talks about how this kind of inspired her to go and push back against this big tech and build her own company. And for me, as nice as that sounded on paper, like I was burnt out. I was stressed. I didn't learn anything about pitching or fundraising
because you had to fix this problem.
Yeah, and my team was just not the right team. And I basically, like right after the program, I didn't raise anything, and it was all digital. So I was just like, all the VCs were like, yeah, come back later. All the cool relationships that I built, I felt like I just got like gutted because like I felt like I built all these cool like friendships and like dynamics with these VCs. They're so happy that I was onto something, and I was like, Sean,
is that when you realize the game is cold?
The game is cold, and it was hard because I was super naive, and so I ended up
those handshakes, the wine and dine.
I didn't get wine and dine until later, but like I mean, I guess the Berkeley kids did, but
yeah,
the VCs were so friendly with me, like, and 500 did a feature with us with HubSpot, and we're like, hey, like we're gonna have like HubSpot come in and do a B-roll with you and promote you, and like it was cool, like it got me some publicity, but 2021 came and I didn't raise any money. And I basically had to fire most of my team at that point.
How did that go with your team?
It was pretty bad. I think between the all the guys that were not working on the tech stuff,
are these your East Oakland friends?
These are like my East Oakland friends. I basically had to fire almost all of them. I kept like one of my friends that wasn't a traditional tech guy, because he was willing to help me ship stuff to Amazon and stuff. And then I brought in one of my buddies who went to UC Davis for for business. So he had more experience doing business stuff. And he was also doing procurement at another company. So he was like, okay, I can work with brands. I work for a big brand company anyways. So he came in, helped me out. And I basically had to fire one of my co-founders because he was like sabotaging the company. And like at one point he was telling the CTO, who neither of them were working full time. He was like, we got to get rid of Sean. He's going to destroy the company. But it was like my idea. This whole thing was my
idea. About to Steve Jobs you?
Yeah. And so the CTO he sends me a message and tells me what was happening. I was like, oh. So I like fire this guy, and
you're like, I'm getting fired from my own company.
Yeah, and it was weird because the guy was like, when I confronted him like before all this, I was like, hey, like I'm sorry, I've just been life, and I was like, it's okay, man, I understand. And as soon as he's like, get us all emotional. As soon as we get off the call, that's when he sends the CTO the message like, we got to get rid of Sean. And the CTO is like, I'm not gonna get rid of Sean. He's the only guy who knows how this works.
He's the sauce,
right? Like Sean is the secret sauce here. So like he tells me, and then I have to fire him. And I didn't raise any money, and I had to like come up with creative ways to like keep the company alive because something was like, Sean,
Okay, so as a founder trying to raise money, you're not quite raising the money that you need.
Yeah.
How are you surviving?
Well, so yeah, I basically, since I could predict sales, I leveraged debt. Like there was a thing called the Amex Plum card.
Hmm.
And I learned that from the guy that I learned e-commerce from. And it was like an unlimited card. So I was like, well, if I have all this cash injection from sellers, I can leverage this Plum card, which is like a no limit spending card that I can buy inventory with. I basically gamified Amazon. I like mapped out all of these brands. I did like some risk calculation where I said the probability that this item drops underneath this price under a certain time frame is like this high. So we created like risk scores for each individual product. Like didn't even matter what it was. It could be toilet paper. I was selling it's like cream for your balls. It's called
Chocolate cream.
yeah, it was like yeah. I sold dude wipes, all types of stuff. And so I figured out how to gamify it and turn it into like stock investment thing.
Hmm.
Put a rank, like a score on it, and then we'd use debt.
Can you tell me how did the ball wipes sell?
Oh, they sold very well. Very
A lot
well.
of sweaty balls out
Yeah, a lot
there.
of sweaty balls. And the thing is, most people don't know they're probably buying from a third party seller, like
Yeah.
people gaming the system. So I basically resold, kept the company around for a year, and then I ended up reaching out to 1517 Fund, which is like Teal Fellowship GPs. They went and built their own fund after all of that. And they invest in dropouts and deep tech. So people building like rockets or like stuff like lab equipment and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Like very, very particular thing. So I ended up getting on this call with the they call it a principal. He's like under the partner. Like they can't write checks, but they can move the deal forward. And I ended up getting on the call with the principal, and he's like, "Holy crap, you're on to something, right?" And then I'm like, "Yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm like gamifying Amazon, and like, you could do it for eBay, Walmart. Here's different ways to do it." And I'm all about the science behind it. And so they go, I want you to meet the partner who can write the check." When I get on the call, like, he's just like goes super in on like my idea. He was like, you know, I have a friend who does this and or knows about this space, and he says that you'll make more money working at McDonald's than selling on Amazon. And I was like, have you like read through the deck yet? And he was like, no, which was kind of insulting because usually
Hmm.
they're supposed to read the pitch deck
Yeah.
before they meet with me. And
So he just shot you down.
he shot me down, like, and then I was like, but I was super calm. I was like, okay, well, kind of like pitch. He's like, yeah, go for it. Like, I'm going into the pitch, and he's like, this thing's gonna lose money, blah blah blah. And I was like, can I like finish my pitch? And I said it super calm. I was like, can I finish the pitch?
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, yeah, go for it. And I get to the slide where I'm exposing how to like gamify it. I was like, and then he was like, as soon as he sees that slide, he's like, oh. And I was like, and even if you make as much money that you'd make at McDonald's, you would make that in a fraction of the time on Amazon using this system. And then he immediately starts roasting. He was like, and people love gambling with crypto and stuff. So people are willing to just burn money. And I was like, yeah, yeah. I mean, yes, that too. And he was like, well, this business is going to fail. And I was like, yeah, it
He already
probably,
had a preemptive like thought in his head.
yeah, but he was actually right. And I knew he was right because I couldn't control the pricing
Hmm.
because there's all these different sellers. And I said, yeah, that may be true, but and I did it like this. I was like, but if you invest in me today, I'll figure out why. And he goes, all right. And so they write a $500,000 check in the company. Well, it didn't happen.
Because you said if you invest in me
Well, because
today.
he knew I was onto something.
Okay.
And so I ended up basically getting an additional meeting where I got to meet the head of the fund. Like, they were both on the call because now they wanted to invest more money than the regular 250K that they normally invest, right?
Now you were really onto something if you're getting more funding than
Than they normally, right,
yeah.
right. So I ended up basically like pitching them, and they're like, okay. And then they just wired a $500,000 check. But I had so much like debt, like I had like all this stuff like that was like I had to pay off. Like I didn't have like the right team. And so what had happened was I went to their during the summer after I got the investment, because it was like early 2021 or early 2022. And I said, they're like, hey, we're gonna have our retreat, 1517 retreat. It's in San Diego. You should come. Now I have, still friends that I grew up with in Oakland, like, or in the Bay Area. Some of them are a little bit more business savvy, but like I have some people from the old team still. And I'm like, okay. So we all go out to San Diego. And when I get there, I think Figma CEO was there. It was like a very different community of people.
Okay.
And what I started to see was, hey, Sean, like these people are like you, like they're hyper fixated and like ideas, but in different spaces. And the way they think is like you. It's like very similar. So I'm like, holy crap, these are people that are just like me.
Yeah, you're
And
like finding your tribe.
right. And I was realizing that out there, it was the first time that I was able to communicate not just with these guys, but in a way that when I started looking at my team, I started realizing that I couldn't even talk to my team like this. Like they were just kind of just doing the work. And, they were excited to just be part of this. And so I was like, Sean, you don't have the right team. There's people building rocket stuff here, like high-end medical equipment and all this like crazy stuff.
There's a difference between excited to be there
And yeah, and it was tough. I got a lot of people
and
tell
belonging there.
right, exactly. And I could tell my team wasn't really fitting into the social dynamic of it,
Mm.
but they were there because like, they were accepted. It's like, oh well, it's part of they got funded, whatever. But like I could tell like they weren't able to keep up with it. So I I was like, Sean, you don't have enough money to and I said this like to myself and my girlfriend at the time. I was like, I don't have enough money to figure out this idea. And I'm probably gonna end up being broke for a little bit. And I need to find a new team. This is not gonna be the team to do it. And so what I did was I was like, all
It's
right,
the second team you fired or the same team?
this is like a newer most of the people I fired, but like the people were let go. But this was like some of them were still remnants of the old
Okay.
team. I still had my engine like the Ukrainian guy on my team. But he didn't even come with me to like the retreat. Like,
Did you end up firing the guy?
well, I ended up letting him go at some point because I just couldn't keep him pay him. Family issues. It was a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
And I ended up basically realizing, all right, Sean, you don't have enough money to figure this out. And you're probably gonna be broke for a bit. All right. But if you can stay put, you may be onto something bigger than whatever this reseller thing is. And so what ends up happening is I end up basically letting go of people slowly, right? And I do something super risky. I like gamble all of my investment, whatever I've left, into trying to predict Amazon market. Like get my
How much did you have left?
it was like 300K, 400K.
And you dumped it?
Oh yeah. And I used all my credit cards and I was like cycling debt for like 3 months, like flipping it, like I was able to hack the Plum card to make it look like we were paying off like the card faster. So they would increase our credit limit to like crazy amounts. I had like credit lines with like a company. And I was just like, okay, like if we do it right, we can make a lot of money just off of the money that we have by reselling ourselves and or giving our customers product and then having them pay it back later.
Hmm.
Right. So I was like, okay, cool. But the guy I was having manage that while I was working, we were basically flipping. He made like $4 or $5 million like over that summer in sales. But because the way we were managing it, he ended up losing money, like buying very high risk products that sure had like high profitability at first, but the risk score that they would drop by 10% and would lose all its profitability was really high. But the team that I had again, they weren't technical math people. Like so,
And those products did drop.
yeah, and so we blew like 300K. Like we were negative 300K actually.
So you had about a $600,000
Yeah,
turnaround.
yeah, yeah. But I made top line sales. We had like 5 million. But with that, I was able to go back to the investors and we're like, hey, we figured something out. And they're like, yo, you figured out you discovered an asset class, Sean. And I was like, I don't know what this stuff is. I'm a tech.
What's an asset class?
An asset class is like property is like an asset class, or like having a yacht, like having some kind of like asset or like thing that has value to it.
So what
So
were the assets? The products?
the listings,
Oh, the listings.
the Amazon listings themselves were drawing in organic sales. So basically, you didn't have to advertise. And the fact that resellers are siphoning it out means that like the listing itself is what's worth money, not the sellers that the money's being distributed to. And I was like, holy crap. And I didn't understand why yet, which is why, I mean, until I could figure out why, I couldn't figure out what to build next. So I basically was like, I blew all this money. And then they were like, okay, well, and then they helped bail me out. They were, it would give you enough cash to keep afloat. And I didn't want to bother them after that. I was like, all right, let me like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm getting exposure to from growing up in Oakland most of my life and not being probably in the ecosystems that I would have normally been in if I stayed in that Smash program.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm starting to realize that like I'm missing tons of information, how to handle like finances, like accounting, taxes, like how to hire proper talent. Like there's a lot of experience that I acknowledge. Like I was like, I have no idea what.
You were a one-man band at the time?
Yeah, well, I had my team, but I
Yeah.
realized like based off of the gaps of talent that I was now interacting with, I was like, I've never had experience working with people like this. Just keep the company afloat. I paid off like half the debt until 2023, and I laid off almost everybody except two people. I was starting to figure out the idea because now at that point, now that I got money from the Teal network, like a lot of the VCs, the bigger funds, like started coming in like, hey, you should come to these private dinners for e-commerce marketplace founders. And I was onto something very different than what most people were building. And they were just like, Sean's onto something. He just doesn't know how to pitch it. And I was so like jumbled with my thoughts because I was stressed out. Just had like I've never been in these environments so, like where I can like learn how to cohesively explain something like a simple formula. Something I probably would have learned if I properly went through 500. Without the stress. And so I was like, Sean, you don't know how to pitch this. And VCs were telling me, you're onto something. What's the point of the resell? And I was like, wait, what is the point of these guys? And so I started going to the brands and I was like, hey, do you guys know how Amazon works? And these big brands who are in thousands of retail stores are like, I have no idea how it works. And I was like, and they would explain it like in their mind. They're like, oh, this is what resellers do. And this is why we use them. And I was like, no, they're using these tools and they're gaming your thing. And they're like, what? And I'm kind of putting the pieces together. And then
Are resellers a good or a bad thing?
they're actually harmful to the brand. And that's what I was getting into. Like like a really large one of the like I won't say which the company is, but really large beverage company, like one of the big ones, came to us and was like, "Hey, we don't know who's selling our products on Amazon." And I was like, "There's no way that this company has no idea who's selling their products." And they explained to me how Amazon they sell to Amazon and Amazon they make pennies on the dollar. They were just telling me all this stuff, and I was
So
like,
they didn't want their stuff on Amazon.
they did because they want the distribution. They want the sales traffic that's coming in through Amazon. Amazon's like a giant shopping mall.
Mhm.
But the way Amazon works as a seller, Amazon themselves also sell. They are also a reseller of brands. They typically work with really really big brands, like like I don't know, like the Yeti wouldn't work, but like something like Yeti could work with Amazon. But the way Amazon does it with them is they basically force them to sell at distribution pricing, if not even cheaper. Because what they're going to do is now this company's not going to make any money. They're not making that distribution margin or wholesale margin anymore. What Amazon's going to do is with that gap, they're going to drop down the MSRP, the retail price that people normally buy it from in the store
Mhm.
and force the price down to where even if they're losing money, people are buying on Amazon.
And
Yeah.
then when they come to the retail, like they don't want to buy it at
Right.
price
Exactly. Destroyed.
because it's a little bit cheaper.
Right. Exactly. And so I was like, so this big, beverage company is telling me this stuff, and I'm like, Sean, there's a bigger idea here.
So basically, your idea at this point was to help brands reclaim their brand
Well, eventually,
or their price.
I realized I was like, wouldn't it make sense if we circumvented the entire reseller system? And they were like, you can do that? I was like, yeah, like imagine you have your brand and we you have all of the sales control, no more middlemen, right? And we go directly to your local brick and mortar store. You don't even need to use a warehouse anymore. And they're like, you can do that? I was like, yeah, I mean, the technology and stuff is here, but yeah, I could do that. And I was putting this together, and the brand at the time when I first went back and showed them like how much money was being extracted from the seller, it's over $100 billion just on Amazon. Over.
That's an extremely large number.
Yeah. And I had mapped it out to the exact listing because I know how to reverse engineer these tools. So I was like, I went back to the brand, I showed them, like, I was like, hey, this is $2 million right here. That now what's happening is it's not just people reselling the product from the brand directly. People are buying from a distribution company and the brand doesn't even know who they are anymore. They're now listing on Amazon. People are using these tools to actually steal from local brick and mortar stores. Like you've seen like on the news, these like huge shopping,
Mhm.
like retail theft rings.
There was one with a lady that got basically caught, and she basically had like a Sephora in her garage
Yeah.
with a bunch of stolen goods from Sephora.
She was hiring a bunch of kids who didn't know how the tools work. That's
Yeah.
why they wouldn't
And Ulta.
right, and then she would have them steal across the country so they
Yeah.
wouldn't, get caught, and then send it to her Amazon store now.
So she was basically using Amazon as a big fence.
Right. So now Amazon now it's funny because the brand does most of their business in local retail.
Yeah.
And so 80-90% of their business is in, these thousand million, there's over a million brick and mortar stores.
Mhm.
So they do most of their business there. So that's why they overlooked Amazon. It was too complicated to use. And so now you have all these random middlemen gaming the system and extracting this money, and retail stores are getting screwed twice. They're getting screwed from
From the
these
product.
right.
being
People are
stolen.
yeah. So people are driving the MSRP down, and they're losing sales to these random people, right? Who aren't really doing anything. I mean, they're literally not. They're just like
So your
like Eric
product
said,
could eliminate some of these theft groups
it
because
would
if they don't have a place to sell.
it would eliminate all resellers completely, and that's the thing. So when I first
So what about the reseller trying to make an honest living?
that's that the horse and buggy man, and that's the thing, a product of its time. There was a guy that would shovel shit off the street, for these horses, and it was just a job that people would do.
Yeah.
And when you just got rid of the horse by getting the car, the guy who was shoveling this
So
shit.
Amazon, you think you're predicting Amazon is just going to be distributing from the actual product
Well,
distributor?
I see that brands are going to be a lot more like they're going to catch up to this stuff, and they're going to figure out what's really happening, what's happening underneath the hood. And they're going to start removing these guys. In fact, when I was reselling, that's kind of what I started to realize.
And this is only for the big commercial brands.
I think every brand that has a reseller is event. I think the third party reseller economy on Amazon or these marketplaces,
Mhm.
next 5-10 years, it's not going to exist anymore.
What about private label stuff?
I think private, yeah, and I can go into that too. Like the only reason, and I thought about this, the only reason I was able to launch a vitamin brand, which was like basically, if you think about, let's compare Amazon to Google. Google search engine, it indexes websites. You know how Google makes its money, like a lot of its money? Advertising.
Mhm.
Because you have your own music shop right here where you're selling music supplies. People love it, right? So it's like John's music supply store, number one on Google. And now if I want to launch my own website through Shopify, right? I am an unranked website. I'm not even like you can't even really find it,
Yeah,
right?
there's no SEO for it.
Right. There's nothing. I mean, there's an index, but it's like at the bottom. So Google makes money because I now pay $5 per click or 50 cents a click. And basically now I could target your keywords and say every time someone looks up John's uh music store, my Sean's music store shows up first. And what happens is actually now people it kind of tricks the perception because people perceive that this listing is better than this listing. And what happens eventually, and I'll tie into how this goes into Amazon, right? Is Shopify enables all these stores, unranked websites, is going to inflate the search engine and it's going to drive you down if you're not advertising,
Mhm.
right? And it's going to enable Sean's like music supply store, Sean's guitar brand, like these different like random pop up businesses or consumer brands like on Google search engine, and it's going to become so expensive to advertise that it's not worth doing it anymore, right? So that's kind of what happened on Amazon. You basically had people like how I did. I picked a random brand that because the brands who were supposed to be on Amazon managing their own stuff were not advertising or running their own thing. The only reason that people they were making money is because it was a household brand.
Household name.
Yeah, so people were just like, oh, I know this brand, so they would just look it up and it would
But
pop up,
there's a bunch of resellers with stolen goods
or they were just gaming the system.
are gaming the system,
So all that money's going to them.
underbidding the
The brand isn't even selling on Amazon for the most part. It's usually these resellers. And so on the reseller side, they're basically siphoning over $100 billion. And if you include Amazon's, they make about $100 billion themselves. Like so, you have a huge amount of money that's being siphoned to these middlemen, basically managing the brand's account, but they're not advertising. So now you have a bunch of people because of Alibaba, like, oh, I'm gonna build my own brand, or like I'm a private label, white label my own brand, and no one's competing in the search engine on Amazon. Google indexes like this. Amazon does it like this. This listing is better than this listing, and it tricks for the perception of people buying. That's why nobody really thought about this. They didn't really think about how this worked. So I cared more about those little details. And I was like, in the short term, private label companies are going to make like $200 billion on Amazon. It's like 300. It's huge. It's a huge amount of money that goes to these people. Like I sold my vitamin brand. I shouldn't have been able to do that. So what's going to happen in the future is brands that have the leverage and the already well-ranked listings or websites,
they're gonna get eaten up.
they're going to realize that, hey, I got this top 3,000 listing out of a million like listing, and I'm not even advertising. But Joe Schmo over here is advertising. What do you think is going to happen to the brands that take back control of their sales? They're going to target Joe Schmo's brand. And that guy is just some guy who's hustling and trying to make money because no one's advertising. He's going to get pushed out of business. So this whole middleman economy, if you're not smart and you're like not thinking ahead, your private label is going to be destroyed. And I think the new level, like the new age of e-commerce companies are going to be about enabling a direct pathway into retail. It's not going to be e-commerce anymore. It's just going to be commerce. In India, they have a thing called quick commerce, and you can order from online and the local store will go and pick it up or get picked up from the local store and delivered straight to the customer. And so using some guy on a moped. And that's where this is going to go.
So it's gonna be you're gonna order something from Amazon.
And yeah,
Amazon could pick it up from the shelves of like Safeway.
it's not even going to be Amazon. It's going to be the brand working with their own company, a partnered company,
Uh-huh.
and it's going to circumvent the reseller. So the reseller is going to get completely axed out of the equation, and the third party logistics system like Amazon FBA companies are. Remember, I said I was making like $5 million in sales,
Yes.
but I was losing money because the fees to ship some items it was dropping the product negative
Is
margin.
this going to destroy
It's going to
Amazon?
destroy the warehouse system over time, or it's going to shrink it significantly because now brands can just use their local retail network. They do most of their business. There's a million brick and mortar stores across the country,
Yeah.
but there are 57,000 third party logistics companies, including Amazon FBA. Why aren't the brands helping their retailers? There's no infrastructure, and so that's when
Do
I
you think overall for a brand, it may create jobs for the brand for them?
Yeah, I think automation is going to really change the power dynamic here. So you're going to replace a lot of these middlemen, and that's kind of like where I'm thinking. I'm not a huge AI buff guy. I think most of the companies are building AI anything or agents, unless they have an asset or something to manage.
Okay.
At scale, it's not going to be. You're going to fizzle out. So I'm focusing now on basically working directly with brands. I'm right now we're launching our product reroute revenue, and we basically help brands figure out what's happening online, and we give them the sale.
Okay,
Track
cool.
sales.
So you're going directly with these brands.
Yeah,
You're using your algorithm, your sauce,
yeah,
and you're seeing what's happening in
yeah.
Amazon.
Right. And what's crazy is one of the brands that when I was showing this off to, like before I even had a company, like I had to fire my last two guys because I was like, Sean, you need to build a new company. Like all the VCs were telling me, like, Sean, you need the right people around you. And
Now you're finally listening.
yeah, and it was hard. A lot of it was, I would say the biggest shock was when I got exposure to a lot of wealth and private groups and
Mhm.
resources. It wasn't like people were like, oh, look, I'm taking you out to this fancy
And
thing.
now you're not just going to give it away for free.
Well, it's not.
You're going to license it.
Yes, I'm going to license it, but also I had to really go through this transformation of like, Sean, like one, you deserve to be here. You deserve to be in these rooms. That was like something really hard.
Get out of the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. You had friends back at home like telling you like, oh, like you're selling out or you dumped us or
You're
like,
not selling out. You're becoming a businessman.
right,
You're
right,
becoming a CEO.
right. I had to go from being like an engineer guy to
Yeah.
like being a CEO, and a lot of it came to like really embracing who I was and like my talent. I used to trick my brain and say like, all right, Sean, solve these crazy puzzles in like seconds or like a couple seconds, and I would just do that frequently. And then eventually I got confident enough to say, like, Sean, you're smart. Like, just accept it. Like, okay. Like you got a gift, man. That's what these people were telling me this whole time.
All right, Sean, walk in that room.
Yeah, and that's what
Be
happened
the
now.
smart kid in the room
Yeah. So
and own it.
yeah. So that company came to us and was like, hey, we want to sign a contract with you. I didn't have a product. I didn't have a team. And I was like, let me try to help you guys out. And they gave me exclusivity rights to all of their sales. I was like, if I take 5% of like your stuff, or I give you like, or I take a percentage of your sales, like, can I do that every month for at least a year? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, Sean, you just cracked something massive. Because now you could return the margin, the profit margin, 10-15% that a reseller was making. And this top line sale, like say a brand's making $10 million a month, like they're not getting any of that money
Instead
outside
of
of the
going
sale.
to the resellers, it goes back to the brand.
Right. You can give the brand back $1 million a month in profit, potentially, like or 15 million or like 1.5 million.
If you're getting 5% of that,
Right.
you're taking me out.
Right. You're done. Like you're out. And so that was the thing. Like I had to, I called my VC and I was like, I told 15, 17, I was like, I figured this out. And they were like, yeah, sounds like you're gonna need help. I'm like, yeah, let me get my stuff together. And so I spent a lot of time, like my last 2 years, like trying to find myself and build myself back up, building the confidence that I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year was when I got a co-founder, um, very untraditional tech space background, but I felt like because one of the things that being in the middle and seeing the high
Do
end,
you have your full team?
almost,
All right.
we were missing a founding engineer, but I think we'll be all right for now.
You'll be all right.
Yeah, I'll be all right for now.
I'm gonna introduce you to some people.
Yeah, I've, and so yeah, I will say it's been kind of crazy because now I've been putting myself out there. I'm just telling people what I'm doing, podcasts like this, and the CRO of a really big company, like I think I showed you, like reached out.
Put yourself out, Sean. You belong in this space. You're the smart kid now.
Yeah, it's tough.
You are here.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. You're not dumb, bro.
That's the thing, man. I didn't
and know your worth.
1,000%. And I think the biggest thing was learning to be around all of these like Ivy League kids. And I would always had this assumption that like these guys were like super geniuses, and
bro, they're human.
They are human.
They just went to a nice school.
They went to a nice school, and sometimes like,
and some of these Ivy League kids are ugly inside. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So find good people. They could be wherever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So find a good team. You belong here, bro.
Yeah.
Keep doing great things. You're disrupting the market. You're reinventing another market.
Yep.
As anything in this world, it evolves. Like you said, that there's no more jobs that shovel shit into a barrel because no one's riding a horse and carriage for transportation now.
Right.
If the reseller was a thing of the past, You know, you just found something.
Right.
Like, everything is changing. AI is disrupting the industry. Don't be afraid to do what you're doing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, a lot of it was getting over that and then believing like, "Hey, Sean, like, you deserve to be in these spaces." Like, got treated out to like I said, like, in Carmel, like, my co-founder had me go out there, and I was just, like, very bougie and, like, they were like, "You belong out here, man." I was just like,
You know, that's how I felt the first
"Yeah,
time I went to a big event,
yeah,
and then someone just told me, celebrity friend of mine,
mhm,
he was like, this is your new normal.
yeah, yeah,
Just accept the fact that what you're doing and your new experiences
yeah."
is gonna be your new normal.
Right,
Because when you treat it as being normal,
right.
you get rid of that imposter syndrome.
Right, and opportunities actually open up. I've had people come like, "Dude, I was waiting for you to clear your table
Yeah.
so you can, like, really," and, like, and it's cool because now I can be in an environment where I don't have to shield things that I wanna talk about. I wanna talk about philosophy or math or business or
Yeah.
whatever, like, there's a space where people can accept me for that. But I also
Bro,
don't forget where
be
I grew up.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're going to set the standard
yeah,
that a nerdy kid from East Oakland changed the market.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Inspire the next kid from a bad situation, like a
yeah,
bad neighborhood, to it's okay, I can change the world. Make all those
yeah,
damn gangsters proud that like, hey, we sent that guy back to school instead of having him trap on the street with us. Like, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like they sent you back to school for a reason because you like they said, you're not about this life, you're about the life that you're creating.